At 1:26 a.m., the sky above central Iran lit up as a coordinated military strike began against Isfahan Air Base No. 8, one of the most significant installations of the Iranian Air Force. Precision-guided bombs struck aircraft shelters, maintenance facilities, and fuel depots across the base. Explosions were reported across multiple sections of the installation as fires spread along parts of the runway and surrounding structures. According to accounts of the operation, the strike lasted less than 20 minutes but caused extensive damage to infrastructure connected to Iran's air operations. Inside several of the shelters targeted during the attack were Grumman F-14 Tomcat fighters, aircraft that have served as a key component of Iran's air defense network for decades. Although these jets date back many years, they continue to perform an important role in monitoring Iranian airspace and intercepting potential threats. The destruction or damage of aircraft and support facilities at the base represents a significant blow to Iran's ability to sustain those operations. The strike did not occur in isolation. It came after a rapid escalation of military actions across the region involving Iran, Israel, and the United States. In the days before the bombing of Isfahan Air Base No. 8, a missile strike hit the Israeli city of Beit Shemesh, located between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. The attack targeted a residential neighborhood on the outskirts of the city after several ballistic missiles were launched from Iran. Israeli air defense systems intercepted several of the incoming missiles, but at least one penetrated the defensive shield and struck the area. Authorities later confirmed that 9 civilians were killed in the explosion, which destroyed several buildings and scattered debris across nearby streets. Shortly after the missile strike on Israel, another wave of attacks targeted American military facilities in the Middle East. According to regional military reports, unmanned systems and cruise missiles were launched toward U.S. bases in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. These installations host critical logistics, surveillance, and air operation facilities used by American forces in the region. Iranian forces relied heavily on unmanned aerial systems during the operation, including Shahed 136 drones and the newer jet-powered Shahed 238 platforms. Cruise missiles were also launched as part of the attack in an effort to complicate interception. American air defense systems responded quickly. Patriot missile batteries were activated across several bases as radar systems detected incoming drones and missiles. Most of the drones were intercepted before reaching their targets, while others were shot down as they approached defended zones. Military officials reported that the attacks did not cause major destruction, but the incident heightened concern about the growing cycle of retaliation unfolding across the region. At the same time as these military developments, Iran was entering a period of political uncertainty following the death of Ali Khamenei, a central figure in the country's leadership structure for more than 3 decades. His authority had shaped key decisions involving military strategy, foreign policy, and national security. His death created an immediate vacuum at the top of Iran's political system and triggered urgent discussions among senior officials and commanders. In Tehran, high-ranking members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps convened behind closed doors to assess the situation and discuss the stability of the country's leadership during a moment of escalating external pressure. Officials expressed concern that Iran's adversaries might attempt to take advantage of the transition period. According to accounts from within Iranian political circles, the discussions quickly turned toward Mushtaba Kham, widely viewed as an influential figure during the unfolding leadership transition. Within hours of the leadership crisis in Tehran, Iran's military began preparing a visible response. Units of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Aerospace Force reportedly activated missile launch positions across central Iran. The order given to the units was to carry out a retaliatory strike that would demonstrate Iran's ability to reach targets inside Israeli territory. Ballistic missiles were launched during the night, including variants of the Fateh 110 and the longer-range Zulfiqar systems. Israeli radar networks detected the launches shortly after the missiles entered flight. Air defense systems, including Iron Dome and David's sling batteries, were activated in response as the missiles approached Israeli airspace. Despite the interception of several projectiles, one missile reached its target area near Beit Shemesh, leading to the casualties later confirmed by authorities. The series of events quickly drew the attention of officials in Washington. Inside the White House Situation Room, senior national security officials gathered for an emergency meeting chaired by President Donald Trump. Military commanders, intelligence officials, and representatives of the U.S. Department of Defense presented assessments of the situation as reports of the missile strike in Israel and the attacks on American bases continued to emerge. Several response options were discussed during the meeting. Among them were proposals to strike Iranian naval assets operating in the Persian Gulf or to target missile launch facilities connected to the recent attacks. Another proposal focused on a different objective: Iran's air power. Military planners identified Isfahan Air Base No. 8 as a key installation supporting Iranian fighter operations. Destroying or disabling the base could weaken Iran's air defense capability while delivering a clear demonstration of American reach. By the end of the meeting, the decision had been made. Isfahan Air Base No. 8 was selected as the target of a precision strike. Planning for the operation moved quickly as military units began assembling the aircraft, weapons, and support systems needed for the mission. Within hours, the plan to strike deep inside Iranian territory was shifting from preparation to execution. Once the decision to strike had been approved in Washington, U.S. military planners began preparing a multi-phase operation designed to penetrate Iranian defenses and deliver a precise attack against Isfahan Air Base No. 8. The objective was to damage infrastructure supporting Iran's air force and reduce the operational capability of aircraft based at the installation. According to accounts of the planning process, the operation relied on a layered approach, combining cruise missiles, stealth aircraft, and long-range bombers. The first phase of the plan focused on weakening the air defense network surrounding the base. Naval platforms operating in the region launched several Tomahawk cruise missiles toward central Iran. Flying at low altitude, the missiles were programmed to strike radar stations, communication nodes, and air defense control sites around Isfahan. Their role was to disrupt detection systems and fragment the radar picture used by Iranian air defense operators. As the cruise missiles approached their targets, several radar installations around the base were struck within minutes. Other systems reportedly lost connectivity as electronic warfare disrupted communications between different parts of the defense network. Iranian operators monitoring the radar environment began to experience gaps in coverage and delays in coordination between air defense units. With the first wave underway, the second phase of the operation moved forward. F-35 Lightning II stealth fighters entered Iranian airspace. These aircraft were tasked with locating and neutralizing any remaining surface-to-air missile systems that might still be active around the base. Their stealth design allowed them to move closer to defended areas without immediate detection, providing an opportunity to suppress defensive systems that had survived the initial cruise missile strikes. Iran's defense around the region included components of the S-300 surface-to-air missile system, designed to engage high-value aircraft at long range. Some defensive units attempted to respond as the aircraft moved into the area. However, with radar coverage already damaged and communication nodes disrupted, coordination between batteries proved difficult. Reports indicate that the defensive response was limited and delayed as operators attempted to regain a clear operational picture. Once the remaining defenses were reduced, the final phase of the strike was launched. High above the region, B-2 Spirit bombers approached their designated release points, carrying precision bunker-penetrating weapons. These munitions are specifically designed to destroy hardened targets such as reinforced aircraft shelters, maintenance facilities, and protected fuel storage areas. At 1:26 a.m., the bombers released their payloads. Moments later, explosions were reported across multiple sections of Isfahan Air Base No. 8. Several hardened aircraft shelters were struck directly. Maintenance buildings and fuel depots were also hit as the bombs penetrated reinforced structures before detonating. Secondary explosions followed as fires spread through damaged areas of the installation. One of the primary objectives of the strike was the base's fighter fleet. Iran continues to operate Grumman F-14 Tomcat aircraft that were originally delivered decades earlier but remain in service as part of the country's air defense structure. Several of these aircraft were believed to be parked inside shelters targeted during the attack. According to initial assessments, some of the shelters collapsed under the force of the explosions, while other aircraft were damaged by fire and debris. The operation lasted less than 20 minutes from the first detonations to the departure of the strike aircraft. When the attacking aircraft withdrew from the area, large portions of the base were burning. Fires were reported near fuel storage facilities, sections of the runway were cratered, and several hangars and maintenance buildings were destroyed or heavily damaged. For Iran's Air Force, the destruction represented a significant operational setback. Facilities that supported routine air operations had been severely disrupted, and part of the country's remaining fleet of F-14 Tomcat fighters was believed to be damaged or destroyed. Although the exact number of aircraft affected was not immediately confirmed, military analysts noted that even limited losses could have long-term consequences for Iran's air defense posture. Beyond the immediate physical damage, the strike also highlighted weaknesses in Iran's defensive network. Despite the presence of advanced equipment such as the S-300 missile system, the coordinated use of cruise missiles, stealth aircraft, and electronic warfare allowed the attacking force to degrade the radar network before delivering the main strike. Once those systems were disrupted, the remaining defensive units struggled to coordinate an effective response. News of the attack spread quickly across the region as reports emerged of explosions and fires at the base. In Tehran, government officials and military commanders began assessing the scale of the damage, while security forces increased alert levels around key installations. Iranian authorities released limited information in the hours immediately following the strike, while emergency crews were deployed to contain fires and secure damaged sections of the airfield. The strike on Isfahan Air Base No. 8 immediately intensified concern about the trajectory of the conflict, involving Iran, Israel, and the United States. What had begun as a series of retaliatory strikes was now evolving into a broader confrontation involving direct attacks on strategic military infrastructure. Regional governments and military observers closely monitored developments as the situation continued to unfold. In the days following the strike on Isfahan Air Base No. 8, the situation inside Iran became even more tense as new developments emerged in Tehran. Late in the afternoon, a powerful explosion was reported near a residential compound believed to be connected to the family of Mujtaba Kham. Local security services and emergency crews quickly moved to the area after reports of the blast began circulating through the capital. Witnesses reported smoke rising above the neighborhood as authorities sealed off nearby streets and restricted access to the area. According to early accounts circulating among individuals close to Iran's political and military leadership, the location appeared to have been struck by a precision attack. Regional observers widely speculated that the operation may have been carried out by Israel, although official confirmation of responsibility was not immediately provided. Initial reports suggested that Mujtaba Kham was present inside the compound when the explosion occurred, and that he sustained injuries during the incident. Sources close to leadership circles indicated that the blast also caused casualties among those inside the residence. Among the reported victims was Kham's wife, Zahra Haddad Adel. Iranian authorities released very limited official information during the first hours after the incident, and state media avoided detailed reporting as security services worked to secure the site and investigate the damage. The reported strike came at a moment when Iran's leadership was already facing significant pressure following the death of Ali Khamenei. The political transition underway in Tehran had created uncertainty at the highest levels of the government, and the possibility that a key figure connected to that transition had been targeted added another layer of tension to the situation. Within Iran's military establishment, discussions intensified about how the country should respond to the series of events unfolding across the region. Senior commanders within the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps reportedly debated potential retaliation options as they assessed both the damage from the attack on Isfahan Air Base No. 8 and the implications of the explosion in Tehran. The strike on the airbase had already reshaped the military balance in several ways. Multiple aircraft shelters, maintenance hangars, and fuel storage areas that supported daily flight operations were destroyed or heavily damaged during the bombing. Fires burned through sections of the base for hours after the attack as emergency teams worked to contain the damage and prevent further explosions. One of the most significant consequences involved the loss of part of Iran's remaining fleet of Grumman F-14 Tomcat fighters. Although the aircraft are decades old, they remain an important element of Iran's air defense network. The F-14 platform allows Iranian forces to patrol wide sections of national airspace and respond to potential intrusions before they reach critical infrastructure. Damage to these aircraft reduces the country's capacity to monitor and defend large areas of its territory. Military analysts noted that the strike also exposed vulnerabilities in Iran's air defense structure. Despite the presence of advanced systems such as the S-300 surface-to-air missile network, the coordinated use of cruise missiles, stealth aircraft, and electronic warfare allowed the attacking force to disrupt radar coverage early in the operation. Once detection and coordination systems were degraded, the remaining defensive units struggled to respond effectively to the incoming strike. Inside Tehran, debate among military and political leaders reflected two competing concerns. Some commanders argued that Iran needed to deliver a powerful response to demonstrate that it could still impose costs on its adversaries. Others warned that rapid escalation might trigger a broader regional war involving additional countries and military forces. Meanwhile, Israel strengthened defensive measures across its territory after the earlier missile strike on Beit Shemesh. Air defense systems remained on high alert as military officials prepared for the possibility of further missile launches. Emergency services continued to assess the damage from the earlier attack that had destroyed several buildings and resulted in the deaths of 9 civilians. American forces stationed across the Middle East also increased their alert levels following the drone and missile attacks on bases in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Patriot missile batteries and other air defense systems remained active around key installations as military commanders monitored Iranian activity in the region. The chain of events that led to the strike on Isfahan Air Base No. 8 had begun with the death of Ali Khamenei, an event that rapidly shifted the internal political landscape in Iran. In the days that followed, missile launches toward Israel and drone attacks against American bases pushed tensions between the three countries toward open confrontation. Washington's decision to strike one of Iran's most important Air Force installations was described by military planners as a calculated response intended to weaken Iran's air power and signal the capability of the United States to conduct precision operations deep inside Iranian territory. However, analysts across the region warned that military strikes rarely end a conflict. Instead, they often set the stage for the next round of retaliation. With Iran's leadership under pressure and regional forces on heightened alert, attention quickly turned to the question of what would happen next. Whether Iran would respond with additional military action or seek to avoid a wider confrontation remained uncertain. Officials in multiple capitals emphasized the risk that continued escalation could transform a series of limited strikes into a broader regional conflict involving additional actors. For now, governments across the Middle East and beyond are closely watching the developments following the strike on Isfahan Air Base No. 8 and the explosion reported in Tehran. The situation remains fluid as military forces remain on alert and political leaders weigh their next steps in a crisis that has rapidly expanded beyond its initial flashpoints. For continued coverage and analysis of developments in this region, viewers are encouraged to subscribe and follow further updates.